The South Carolina Hall of Fame was founded in Myrtle Beach in 1973 to recognize and honor contemporary and past citizens who have made outstanding contributions to South Carolina's heritage, history, and progress.
Robert E. Marvin has been deemed the father of Southern landscape architecture and is internationally recognized for his work and philosophy on design. During a career that spanned 5 decades, he created a legacy that exists throughout the region and state in the form of multiple public and private spaces and can be traced back to his childhood in Walterboro, South Carolina.
Robert Marvin had a really strong relationship with nature. He developed this relationship as a young child living in the Low Country. He spent a lot of time exploring the swamp and the fields and the forests.
My father grew up on Bonnie Doon Plantation. It was 15,000 acres. He was an only child. He lived 7 miles from his nearest neighbor.
His father was the caretaker of the plantation. And the people that owned the plantation would hire Enna Cheney and Webble, landscape architects from New York. Well, Robert saw that going on and he paid attention to that. And that's really what sparked his interest in landscape architecture.
They used to pay him 50 cents and he'd go help water the plants in between, but he grew up with a great sense of the balance between man and nature.
Robert Marvin graduated from Clemson University in 1941 with a degree in horticulture. After serving as a captain in the U.S. Army in the Pacific Theater during World War II, Marvin attended graduate school at the University of Georgia, where he began studying landscape architecture.
His professors from both the University of Georgia and Clemson both told him he could not possibly earn a living as a landscape architect in South Carolina, let alone from Colleton County, South Carolina.
When Robert Marvin first started practicing, the profession of landscape architecture was going through a transition from historical, traditional landscape design to a more contemporary modernist design.
Robert was not a stylist. He never wanted to talk about style. He shied away from style.
Man can no longer force himself on nature. He has to build with nature and subservient to nature. The old engineering principles where we bulldoze and where we force, and the old design ideas where man is dominant, now have to give way to the idea that we have to save this environment. The population is growing too fast. How do you design an environment where a man feels absolutely secure, where he feels he is in spaces where he is comfortable, where he's challenged by the things he needs to be, where he's comfortable with the people he's with, so that emotionally he is at ease with himself and he's not frustrated by that environment? How do you design an environment where a man can grow intellectually? So we're talking about building a total environment that encourages and develops the self-expression of every individual in it.
There was a strong desire to design for people, and that user needs were very important. And I think that with Mr. Marvin you would see that he addressed human needs and user needs by designing things to comfortable scale for people.
If you listen to nature, if you listen to the client, if you listen to the environment and design accordingly, the chances of winding up with a really great design are very good.
Marvin's work has garnered scores of National Environmental Landscape Awards, and his firm's projects number in the thousands. He received awards at the White House from every First Lady, from Pat Nixon to Hillary Clinton. While he lectured nationwide, his work was primarily in the Southeast, and he would often tell people that his life's work goal was to save the South from destruction.
My father firmly believed that because the South was still struggling and was poor, that it hadn't had an opportunity to destroy itself. The population trends were very evident that people were going to be moving to the South Carolina coast. And he really wanted the South to have an opportunity to have planned growth.
We know in 72 and 73 that half the growth of America, over 1 million homes were built in the South, from Virginia, Texas, south. It is going to grow. And we also are positive this is not an automatic road to happiness. It's just as apt to be complete chaos, because most of the areas that have exploded have done such a poor job of building the total environment for man's total need. 2 most valuable natural resources, we keep telling everybody, are its present people and its present environment.
Robert Marvin was I believe, a man of the New South, that he wanted to help the South to modernize, but at the same time did not want the South to lose its sense of cultural uniqueness.
It brings us an opportunity to build an environment where every single human being can be a full human being if we design it right. It also brings us an opportunity to be so materialistic and to use old principles of design so that it will be less great to live in.
This unassuming native of Colleton County, South Carolina, made his mark as one of America's foremost landscape architects and created some of the state's most recognizable public spaces.
Each one of his projects was unique to the site, unique to the setting, the orientation, the prevailing breezes, soil types, the existing trees, all of those things. So each one was unique to its own needs and requirements and to its clients' needs and desires.
He said, you know, you just can't improve on God and nature. I think that says a lot about what he believed and what he thought in and about the legacy he's left not only for my children and I, but for South Carolinians.
Although he was ill for several years, Robert E. Marvin continued to develop plans he hoped would enhance lives until shortly before his passing in 2001.